Dhamma Talks by Mogok Sayadaw. 5th to the 6th of May 1962. With more wavering and more sinking, with big Taṇhā comes big Cauldron. These two talks are based on the Chanavada Sutta, Sutta No. 144, Majjhima Nikāya, Minnesota 144. Then, Channa considered himself an arahant before his suicide. Sariputta was checking his view with Dhamma. The contact of physical object, aram, aramana, and eye sensitivity or eye clear form, cakkhu pasadarupa, eye sense door, and eye consciousness arises. Do you take the eye consciousness as, this is mine, this I am, this is myself? Sariputta asked him if he clung to them with Taṇhā, Mana, and Ditthi. He discerned it with Anicca and answered that Taṇhā, Mana, and Ditthi had not arisen for him. This is still insight knowledge, and not the path knowledge yet. He only discerned the arising and its vanishing. I am now teaching you how to practice it. Every time something arises, you must see it as not there. His seeing was only insight knowledge, but he thought it was the path knowledge. Therefore, after his suicide, he would not take rebirth. Then, Khandha, Sariputta's younger brother, reminded Then. Channa, the Buddha has said, there is wavering in one who is dependent, there is no wavering in one who is independent. Painful feelings were arising in him, and he could not bear it because he still had affection for the Khandha. Dependence on the Khandha with Taṇhā Ditthi leads to wavering. Therefore, if the Khandha becomes afflicted, changed, and wavered, only the afflicting Taṇhā dies and will not waver. If people are not wavering, letters and telegrams would disappear. With computers and the internet, they have also nearly come to demise. When the letters are coming, there is wavering with the gladness of Taṇhā, and with no letters, there is wavering with dosa. Do you have any time for not wavering? Sayadaw mentioned some of them. If your mind is never in the state of equanimity, it will be wavering. Even after someone's death and still in wavering, so no need to say when someone is still alive. Therefore, you all are a species that wavers. Wavering isn't good. Wavering with lobha leads to Taṇhā, upadana, kamma, and with dosa comes sokha, parideva, etc., and with moha leads to avidya, sankhara. With more wavering, you sink deeper into apayas, hells, animals, and ghosts. The minds of noble beings do not waver anymore. Do the Buddha and Arahants waver when disciples informed the Buddha about their passing away or when Mahamoggallana was beaten by bandits? With wavering, one has to sink and drift away. Only with practice will it not waver. I'll talk about the practice tomorrow. As the mind moves, it continues the DA process. After Sariputta and his brother left, Channa killed himself with a razor. He was seeing the mental sign, nimitta, for rebirth. If he were an arahant, he wouldn't see it, and would only see Nibbāna. Sayadaw mentioned some of the signs at dying. After his enlightenment, the Buddha lived for 45 years and warned us 1792 times to practice. So at near death, do not become remorseful. Immersed in pleasures now, you have to shed tears at dying. Only the path knowledge can help you. Sayadaw talked about the terrible situations during the dying process. Practicing with a strong mind and body is quite important. Here, Sayadaw gave the example of his old disciple Yu Ling, who was a gem businessman. At the age of 85 to 86, his mind was in confusion and couldn't discern the changing nature of the Khandha body. Avidya overwhelmed his mind, even though he practiced for 4 to 5 hours every day and didn't understand what the Khandha was indicating. He met me at the age of over 50 and has listened to my talks ever since. However, He decided to delay his practice, and his time was wasted. It's a great loss. So I urge all of you to practice now. Then, Channa, upon seeing his mental sign, put forth great effort quickly in his practice and became an arahant before death. He achieved this attainment because of his prior preparation and habitual practice. Here again Sayadaw mentioned his new disciple Yuongzan Wai, who was a government minister and is now retired. General Ne Win recently executed a coup, seizing power and dismantling parliamentary democracy. Yuongzan Wai spent most of his time as a minister. If he had practiced earlier, it would not have taken long for him. If he puts a lot of effort like now, he will also make it. Ignorant people are taking the place of a teacher and fools are following their advice. This refers to some people who encourage others in worldly affairs. Don't think, I'll do it later. You have to practice fervently. People are wasting their precious time on Taṇhā, i.e., the master. All are misusing it. Sayadaw showed his compassion and care for the disciples because after a few months, he would leave this world. With big Taṇhā comes the big hell cauldron. These are the dharmas, i.e., defilements, that contribute to the perpetuation of samsara. Previously it was Westerners, now it's all humans. Your status and situation being lower than others is not so important. Falling into apayas is really bad. You're not afraid of falling into hells, but you fear having a lower status than others. If you finish the practice now, it is better. If not, at near death you can still enter the stream, become a sotapanna. It's still beneficial, the practice. It's becoming clear that insight practice needs to be habitual, i.e., asina kamma, then. Channa was a very good example for yogis. The greatest fault is dying from this life and taking rebirth in the next, as said by the Buddha. Whatever Dhamma is arising, know it as, not there, etc. i.e., anicca. Dhamma Talks by Mogok Sayadaw. 7th to the 8th of May 1962. Using the sense doors wisely. These two interesting talks were based on the last sutta of the Majjhima Nikaya, the Indriyabhavana Sutta, No. 152, MN 152, the development of the faculties. Sayadaw's talks from his last year had heavy tones, reminding us of the dangers of defilement and its consequences in the rounds of samsara and painful rebirths. They instill a strong sense of samvega and dispassion towards the world. In the beginning, Sayadaw emphasized the importance of intellectual understanding of the DA process for dana, sila, and bhavana. Otherwise, you're merely exchanging big dukkha for smaller ones. It is better to shun away from any dukkha entirely. If you don't know how to open your eyes, and with the opened eyes, it is quite frightening. For example, with seeing comes wanting, clinging, etc. It becomes birth, jati. Birth is the truth of dukkha. With the opening of eyes comes dukkha. It's the same way with the ears. Hearing a sound, dosa, and soka, parideva can follow. The most important thing is always having sati. And it's quite important to contemplate with anicca whatever arises from the 6 sense doors. From the door of the eyes, each day there are uncountable dharmas leading to apayas, the same with other doors. Understanding the DA process makes it quite frightening to wander in samsara and endure a long samsara. Humans seldom recognize that craving for existence is very dangerous and terrifying. Even some monks postulate new ideas and doctrines for becoming. Compared to your merits, it is incomparable. Arriving at apayas is not about breaking sila, but breaking bhavana, developing the mind. Sayadaw gave the example of consuming foods. He emphasized that if we do not break bhavana, everything will be okay. When your body itches and becomes unbearable with dosa, scratching it with Taṇhā brings temporary pleasure, and then Taṇhā arises again. In this talk, Sayadaw was discussing feelings arising from the sense doors. I am worried about you until everything becomes clear today. The Buddha also teaches us the ways of thinking in Sakkasamyutta. He says, don't think with thoughts of sensuality, karma, ill will, vyapada, and harming, vihimsa. If you want to think, consider this. This is dukkha sakka, this is samadaya sakka, etc. Only think about these truths. Thinking about children and business can lead you to apayas. What is arising now? And what is vanishing now? This is thinking with truths. With this kind of thinking, the path factors, the 5 maganga, arise and cut off the DA process. This is the development of the path factors, bhavatabha. Even the Buddha has taught us good thoughts. It appears to us as, he is the great compassionate one. Every time a thought arises in the Khandha body, think with the following Nana. What is it? You'll only find dukkha sakka, but don't add anything extra to it. Even if Taṇhā samadaya sakka arises and passes away, it becomes dukkha sakka again. The cutting off of the DA process leads to Nibbāna. Today's talk is about how the Buddha taught to use the 6 sense faculties. Normally, we make mistakes regarding them, misusing them and defiling the mind. The story in the sutta was told, for example, a mental feeling of gladness, somanassa vedana, arises upon seeing a gemstone. The audience were gem business people. This vedana arises with the conditioning of the sight and the eyes. At that moment, with quick attention to its inconstant nature, anicca dhamma, the arising of a resultant dhamma, paticcasamuppanna dhamma, by conditioning phenomena, sankhata dhamma, occurs. With attention, the vedana is no longer there. The DA process can't continue. Vedana does not connect to Taṇhā. Therefore, contemplate all arising dhammas as sankhata dhamma or paticcasamuppanna dhamma, or as arising and vanishing, anicca. In the Buddha's teachings, it involves the sounds of letters and text, more detailed as teaching, simpler as practice. It also works if you contemplate it as anicca. Other kinds of feeling should be contemplated in the same way. Then, with the opening of the eyes, the DA process cuts off. Here we can see the importance of Dharma education. In the world of conditions, there are positive and negative dharmas, and their results are also positive and negative. How humans use their knowledge is the most important thing in the world. This is crucial not only for the peace and happiness of humans, but also for human survival and nature. The most dangerous entity in the 21st century is weapons of mass destruction, which are piling up in the hands of superpowers. If you can contemplate the 3 kinds of arising feelings, sukha, dukkha, and upekkha, and let lobha, dosa, and moha die with the DA process cutting off in the beginning, middle, and the end, with the arising of the path knowledge, you attain Nibbāna. With the skill of opening the eyes, you lead to Nibbāna. Everyone is able to open their eyes in accordance with parental traditions. But those not able to open them according to the Dharma ways will find that one of the lobha, dosa, or moha will arise. This inclines toward apayas. Therefore, the Buddha says, in 100,000 humans who die, not even one of them arrives at a good, sugati, destination. From the 6 senses of doors, humans always establish the 6 cauldrons in hells. Human greediness is even evident in hells. We have a lot of copyrights here. but for cauldrons, there is no copyright. So, don't live a heedless life. If a greedy mind arises, contemplate it as Sankhata Dhamma, the coarse Dhamma, and the result of dependent arising Dhamma. Quickly contemplate as Anicca Dhamma, Dukkha Dhamma, and Anatta Dhamma. With every contemplation, the DA process can't continue. It's cut off by the thought. Don't adhere strictly to the letter, the text. Every time something arises, just contemplate it as arising and vanishing. This becomes Vipassanupekkha Gnana. With a lot of contemplation, it develops into Sankhara Upekkha Gnana, knowledge of equanimity towards formations. Sayadaw gave some examples of the practice from the 6 sense doors. If you contemplate in this way, the sense faculties are secure. Whatever arises, seeing, hearing, etc., must be contemplated, i.e., consciousness arises from the 6 sense doors. Lobha, dosa, moha minds arise in the heart, so contemplate them there. Yesterday Sayadaw taught Vedananupassana, today, Cittanupassana. Dharma Talks by Mogok Sayadaw. The 9th of May 1962. Whoever loves dukkha not attain Nibbāna. Based on the naked ascetic Kassapa discourse, Samyutta N. SN 12.17. In the time or even before the Buddha, people were asking the 10 questions which the Buddha never answered for them. These are 10 abhyakata dharmas, which are based on wrong views and have no benefits. The naked ascetic Kassapa also asked some of them to the Buddha. One is suffering created by oneself. The Buddha's answer is, not so. It's not good to ask this way. One has done it and one has to suffer, which becomes sasata ditthi. With this wrong view, one can't attain Dharma. It prevents the path and fruition of knowledges. With the causes, the result arises. 2 is suffering created by another. The one who has done it is one person and the outcome of suffering is another person. There is no cause and effect relationship. The Buddha's answer is also, not so. This is Ukkeda Ditthi. As an example, people often say, I have suffered because of others. 3 is suffering created both by oneself and by another. The answer is also not so. This question involves a combination of 2 wrong views. 4 did suffering happen by chance? The answer is, not so. This is a wrong view that rejects the cause. 5 is there no suffering? There is suffering. 6 do you not know about suffering? The Buddha's answer is, he knows about it. If you want to know dukkha, you have to understand the Paticcasamuppada. Sayadaw explained the 12 links for the arising of dukkha. Loka, the world, i.e., mind and form, only has a cause and effect connection and no person or being. It's only operating with samadaya and dukkha, cause and effect. After the dispelling of ditthi, one must practice. Dispel wrong views first and then practice. Therefore, it only exists as a dukkha machine which is turning on and on. Whoever loves, likes, dukkha cannot attain Nibbāna. There are many people who love dukkha, even though most people don't know about it. Understanding dukkha and the fear of dukkha are the most difficult things for human beings. Sayadaw continued to say that many Buddhas have arisen, as many as sand grains in the Ganges River in India, but now we are still here. Dharma Talks by Mogok Sayadaw. The 16th of May 1962. Blind and disabled person. You all are worshipping knowledge and conduct, i.e., Vijja and Karana. This is the task of the practice. It's better than other beliefs which are avijja ignorance and delusion. Worship alone yields only merit and not the main point. Knowledge is like the eyes and conduct like two legs. So, it's more than worship. It's the task to move towards Nibbāna. Blind and disabled persons, i.e., this metaphor refers to the body and the mind, as used by Mogok Sayadaw in his teaching on Dukkha Sakha, with one of the four meanings as Pilanatta, oppressive. It was quite an excellent talk. This talk was based on a sutta in the Anguttara N, the QS and as between Upavana and Sariputta. And 4.175. The great wisdom of Sariputta is evident in each moment as he can count the number of mental arisings in a person. One Upavana asks Sariputta, with only knowledge, Vijja, can one arrive at Nibbāna? Sariputta answers, no, one cannot arrive there. 2. With only conduct, Karana, can one arrive there? Even with Sila and Samadhi, one cannot arrive there. 3. With both knowledge and conduct, can one arrive there? One still cannot arrive there. This leaves everyone doubtful. If you are complete with Vijja and Karana, you are only observing Nibbāna. You have not arrived there yet because you still possess the Khandha. Nibbāna is a state where no Khandha exists. The Khandha is Dukkha Sakha. Therefore, one has not achieved Nibbāna yet. 4. What about without both of them, i.e., Vijja and Karana? One cannot arrive there. If Karana is broken down, Vijja doesn't perceive rightly. With the breaking down of Sila and Samadhi, you cannot perceive it rightly. With the stability of Karana and sharpness of Vijja, one will arrive at Nibbāna. It is like being disabled and blind. One cannot reach the destination of the journey. Even if you have seen Nibbāna, your changing Khandha is still there. Sayadaw told the story of Magandhya the Brahman's daughter and the differences between the human body and a Devata body. Dha. E. 193 ff. SNA. E. 542 f. Nibbāna does not accept the loathsome body, a Subha Khandha, because it's Subha Nibbāna, pleasant and peaceful Nibbāna. In accordance with point 4, all the worldlings will eventually arrive at Nibbāna. Therefore, you all have to look after your Sila securely. In the 5 path factors which I teach you, completion is achieved with Samadhi and Panna. If your discernment of Anicca is complete with these two, Samatha and Vipassana go together. The task of our practice is on the right track, so be careful with Sila. Sayadaw emphasized the importance of Sila in Samatha and Vipassana practice. If your Karana is broken, you can't discern Anicca. This is the reason why Anicca is not discerned. With stable Karana and sharpened Vijja, one becomes adept. Please remember these words carefully. With weak Vijja, you can't see it rightly. Dhamma Talks by Mogok Sayadaw. The 18th of May 1962. The Fool and the Oppressor. The Khandha is always oppressing us. In Pali, it's called Pilanatta, having the nature of being oppressive. We don't know it because we do not investigate it with knowledge. Without Dharma education and knowledge, nobody knows about it. Thus, humans are like fools. As an example, the one who has affection works all the time to feed it, oppressed by Dukkha Sakha and Samadaya Taṇhā, which must pay the taxes. You all don't have free time because the oppression is too strong. You're busy and can't practice. Even though you're paying the taxes all the time with no benefit, because it is always moving towards aging, sickness, and death. So, you're lost in stupidity. After death, the wrong view of me and my body will also pull you down to apayas. Not knowing its oppressive nature leads you to maintain affection. The Buddha also says, not knowing the oppressive nature of the khandha means you don't believe someone will become a stream enterer or achieve arahantship. It's only by knowing the truth, sakkha, that there is no affection, and with no affection, Taṇhā dies, and Taṇhā's death signifies Nibbāna. Without purification of the three wrong views, i.e., Sakkaya, Sasata, and Akeda, did this, beings will have affections towards the khandhas. You must discern the arising phenomenon free from Akeda view and see the vanishing of it free from Sasata view, discerning both the arising and vanishing free from Sakkaya Ditthi, the identity wrong view. Whatever arises from the khandha is Dukkha Sakkha arising. Being free from them by listening to Dhamma, i.e., Paticca Samuppada teaching, emptiness, etc., makes you a Kala Sotapanna. Sayadaw told the story of Ven. Channa. Firstly, you must dispel Ditthi and then proceed to practice. However, Ven. Channa practiced first. He had a self, atta, view, Sakkaya Ditthi, and Sasata Ditthi, and did not hold a Akeda Ditthi. Therefore, becoming fearful, he was looking for a refuge. After dispelling the wrong views and practicing a preferred Satipatthana object, you make the determination to attain it. Dharma Talks by Mogok Sayadaw. 22nd to the 23rd of May 1962. Safety first. Let pleasures come later. Listening to a Dharma talk is to understand the differences between Panati and Paramatta Dharmas, the concepts and ultimate reality. The concepts are oppressing you. You are ending up at others' mouths. If you don't know the differences between them, you are always beating your chest and crying. Sayadaw told the story in the Kimaka Sutta, SN 22.89. He, i.e., Anagami Kimaka, does not cling to the khandha as me and mine, but still has the residual conceit and desire of I am. He did not regard the five khandhas as me or I, and still has the residual conceit. This will not lead to apayas because the clinging to the wrong view of me and mine has been abandoned. The two forms of Taṇhā and Māna, i.e., the coarse ones, which can lead to apayas, are already abandoned after becoming a stream enterer, Sotapanna. You have to note this point very carefully. It is very important to abandon or destroy the views of me and mine. This is the seed of hells latent in the heart, chitta, mind. You have to practice to the point where it is secure from the apayas, hells, animals, and hungry shades, and then you can be happy with the pleasures. Indulgence in worldly pleasures is like licking the honey on the blade of a razor, as mentioned by the Buddha. Sayadaw is warning his disciples about this point. If you indulge in worldly pleasures and later fall into apayas, it is like this analogy. Sayadaw described the hell existences and the ghost world, Peters, and gave instruction on Cittanupassana and Anicca. If you discern Anicca, the hell seed falls off. You have reason to ask me when the contemplation of insight will end. For example, if you contemplate minds and see them as not minds but only as Aniccas, then you are closer to the path of knowledge. If you're only seeing the minds, it's not yet complete. You have to see the vanishing of the phenomena which is Anicca and keep this point in mind. Don't contemplate it as minds, feelings, etc. Instead contemplate it as Anicca, noting as Anicca. When the yogis discern Anicca, in this way, you attain Nibbāna in a short period. You need to ask me why that is. When the mind is sharp, at the time of discerning Anicca, could it be possible for two minds to arise together? You see the non-existence of the arising minds, even though you're contemplating minds. Therefore, change the contemplative knowledge to anicca. Even though contemplating minds, only when you discern the non-existence of the minds does it become correct. If you're still seeing the minds, it's still wrong because minds can't arise together and become parallel. Knowledge of rises and falls means arising here and vanishing here. We have to reflect on this point carefully. The reality of seeing is the non-existence of the arising mind. Therefore, here contemplate as anicca, perceiving as anicca, knowing as anicca. During the time of contemplation, do not let other mind states intervene. Between anicca and magga, don't let other dharmas intervene. If you can contemplate in this way, it is certain to attain Nibbāna. The Buddha himself provides a guarantee in the Sutta of the Anguttara Nikāya. The reason it takes a long time for you is that between anicca and the contemplating mind, i.e., magga, other minds intervene, so that the contemplative mind has to enter later. The vanishing of the arising dharma is anicca, and knowing the vanishing is magga. If you can continue this process, you can even attain Dharma within an hour. Note: in his life of teaching Dharma, Mogok Sayadaw always emphasized the importance of the first stage of enlightenment, which abandons ditthi vicikicca, wrong view and doubt. His emphasis on this point was greater than other teachers, as far as I am aware. In most of his talks, this point is evident. Even the Buddha himself takes this point very seriously, with the analogy of extinguishing the burning of head hairs more seriously than other matters. Because the pains and sufferings created by wrong views and doubts are frightening and terrible. Let's not even discuss the woeful existences of hells and ghosts, animals which most humans know about but are ignorant of and exploit the animal kingdom brutally. Even today, human problems and sufferings are also quite extreme by human standards. With the material developments, most Westerners consider some of the Buddha's teachings as mythology, but most of them believe in God and Genesis and worship him. Worldly knowledge is very limited and incomparable to the Buddha's knowledge. Anyone who only understands the nature of the mind, the creator, and the law of Kamma, the genesis or law of evolution and devolution, will recognize Buddha Dharma is not mythology or blind faith. If anyone doesn't understand and penetrate the real creator and the true genesis, they are still a worldling, inferior, or ignoble or defiled person. The permanent homes of worldlings are the four upayas. There are many Dharma points in the suttas that make it clear why the Buddha and his noble disciples have great compassion and concerns for the worldly human beings. I want to highlight a few of them for contemplation. Don't be forgetful or heedless of our true situations. There are negative and positive aspects. I'll mention one example for each situation. From the negative side, all humans are sure to encounter old age, sickness, death, and after death the uncertainty of our new rebirths or destinations. All of these are difficult and painful experiences. The most difficult and painful time is at death. Most people fear death and don't know how to deal with it when nearing the end. The best way to deal with it is through practice and learning how to react to the mind in such situations. For this matter, please read the sutta in the Abhayasuttam, Fearless, Anguttara Nikāya, the Book of the Fours, and 4.184, where the Brahman Janasoni asked the Buddha about death. Without habitual practice and knowledge of Dharma, it is quite difficult to experience a good death. Falling into upayas makes it quite difficult to rise again to sugatis. The positive side we should never forget is that as humans we now encounter the Dharma and have the chance to end dukkha in this life, or, at least with habitual practice, can better deal with the problems of death and rebirth. There are 8 situations where beings can't have this chance. For this matter, please read the sutta in the Anguttara Nikaya, the Book of the Eights, Sutta No. 29, Inopportune Moments. And 8.29 Akana Suttam. Another sutta very important for humans is in the Anguttara Nikaya, the Book of Fives, Sutta No. 57 Frequent Reflection or the 5 Themes. This discusses aging, sickness, death, separation, and kamma, actions. It's quite well known to nearly all Theravada Buddhists. They typically recite the 5 themes of the first part of the sutta. There are 3 parts in it, so everyone should read the entire sutta with frequent contemplation. The most important point in this sutta is that frequent contemplation and practice lead to ending dukkha. There are also other important benefits: not fearing aging, sickness, death, and separation from people and things. And then we're very careful about our actions, not harming others or oneself. I'll only describe the 5 themes briefly so people will recognize Sutta No. 57. To 3. I am subject to old age and cannot escape from it. The same applies to sickness and death. I must be parted and separated from everything dear and agreeable to me. I am the owner of my actions. Whatever I do, for good or evil, to that will I fall heir. 8 subjects for developing samvega, sense of wise urgency. Birth 2. Aging 3. Sickness, diseases 4. Death. After death, the dangers of falling into 3 painful destinations: hells, animals, hungry shades. In present life, the sufferings come from the struggles for survival. There are many different forms, such as feeding the body, looking after the body in many ways, bathing, urination, defecating, etc. All these are worse than being a slave in U.S. history. And 8. In past lives, similar occurrences have happened, and in the future they will continue in the whole of samsara if we can't end dukkha. The 4 important points in reflection on death. In reflection on death, to avoid the following 4 points. Having worry for oneself during the practice. Feeling sorrow for one's loved ones. Developing gladness for one's enemy one doesn't like or hate. Feeling indifferent towards a stranger. The reflection should be developed samvega and knowledge. Some of the benefits of reflecting on death are: good sati, avoidance of unwholesomeness, no fear of death, less clinging to the body and external things, realizing Dhamma near death, using one's time wisely, having strong samvega, etc. For detailed practice on death, please consult the Visuddhimagga textbook. Some years ago in Thailand, some forest monks had the chance to witness an autopsy at the well-known Chulalongkorn Hospital in Bangkok and the Body Museum near it. It had a strong impact on my mind that persists to this day. There were many corpses for autopsies and there were no proper places to keep these corpses. Some of them were lying naked on the floor. During the autopsy, we are not much different from animals such as pigs, cows, goats, etc., which humans like so much for their flesh. We can see very clearly about its essence less, ownerless nature, suffering, and change. It's gloomy, but a strong dispassion arises. The Body Museum is also quite interesting. There are some recorded crimes and the materials involved with it. There is a mummified body of a Chinese man who kidnapped children and ate their flesh. It recorded a well-known crime committed by a doctor who murdered his wife because he had an affair with another woman. This story was also made into a movie. A historical relic in the museum is the tools used at the autopsy of the Thai king who passed away by accident with a gunshot wound at a very young age. He reigned quite briefly, and the brother who succeeded him reigned for a long time until his old age. Some years ago in a Himalayan country, a crown prince gunned down his royal family with a machine gun and then took his life. The reason behind this was his love for a woman whom his parents rejected. The dynasty ended there. The important point here I want to emphasize is the law of Kamma, as mentioned in the Sutta No. 57, Frequent Reflection. Some people, because of their past merits, are born as humans in the higher classes, but they misuse their chances. Heedfulness regarding the law of Kamma is the most important teaching for humans. There is an interesting short sutta in verse in the Vuddhisattam, SN 1.74, Devata Samyutta, the rain. Some devatas came to see the Buddha and asked him 4 questions, of which I will mention 2. A devata asked, "What is the best of things that rise up? What excels among things that fall down?" The Buddha replied, "Knowledge, or wisdom, is the best of things that rise up. Ignorance excels among things that fall down. What are human beings looking or searching for? Are they searching for things that rise up or fall down? Humans often ponder whether they are searching for things that rise up or fall down. The first is considered a noble search, and the second an ignoble search. For the noble search, humans need Dhamma education, and without it, humans' permanent homes are the 4 apayas bhumis, because the increase of ignorance leads to the increase of defilements. Dhamma Talks by Mogok Sayadaw. The 26th of May 1962. With corpses piling up. In this talk, Sayadaw made an interesting point referring to anicca and the stopping method and how they are related. In the Dhamma Sangani Matika, there are 2 dharmas, Akaya Gamino Dharma, the Dharma leading to birth and death. Dharma of increasing faith, Saddha, leads to death and birth. Dharma of increasing wisdom, Panna, does not lead to death and birth, Apachaya Gamino Dharma. The Dharma of liking or loving of Dukkha and the extinguishing of Dukkha. The piling of corpses and ending of corpses. The Buddha has great compassion. He is worried for humans about the piling of corpses and happy for people who end their corpses. People like things which the Buddha doesn't like and vice versa. If you are content with the corpses piling up, this is just craziness. Akaya Gamino Dharmas are merits and demerits, desire for becoming and existence. I'll talk by using Dhamma Sangani and Salayatana Samyutta together. This is the sutta related to Malankaputta, SN 35.95. Do you have any desire, lust, or affection for those forms cognizable by the eyes that you have not seen before and that you do not see now? I.e., at present moment, with the DA process, Taṇhā, Upadana, and Kamma are Dharma leading to death and birth. Now, you have found out the culprits. I have taught you the 11 types of mind, and you have to follow them from their arisings to their endings. You'll only find out their non-existence. Do you have any desire, affection for the non-existent Dharma or disappointment with them? When you're seeing the non-existent Dharma which you have not seen before and are not seeing it at the present. Therefore, Taṇhā, Upadana, and Kamma do not arise. There is also no arising of the unknowing moha, avidya. If you can end your own corpse or funeral, do you have to send other people's corpses or funerals to cemeteries? Sayadaw continued the Malankaputta Sutta. You have to experience, or feel, i.e., Vedana, whatever arising of Dharma with the path factors of discerning anicca. This is what the Buddha taught Malankaputta. In this talk, we see Sayadaw's deep understanding of Dharma. In the Buddha's question to Malankaputta, he asked him, "You have not seen before or are not seeing just now. both of them align with the concept of anicca which Mogok Sayadaw emphasizes in most of his teachings. With the stopping method, if the yogi can stop at just seeing, hearing, etc., no kilesa arises, or if the yogi discerns anicca, no kilesa arises. In the path factors, 5 Maganga, feeling, Vedana, is also included, which is Upekkha Vedana, the same in stopping. Note, some Western scholars think Abhidhamma teachings are inauthentic. But Mogok Sayadaw's teaching and his yogis' experiences justify the authentic teaching of the Abhidhamma. In his time, Mogok Sayadaw was a very well-known Abhidhamma teacher and quite young. Some of the great monks, scholars or yogis, had learned Abhidhamma from him. Shui Hin Ta Sayadaw was much senior to Mogok Sayadaw, and he also had studied with him. See my introduction to Mogok talks. Mai Zin Toya Sayadaw U Sobita also studied Abhidhamma under him. U Sobita had a writing note on Patthana text, conditional relations, which is now available in Burmese. Before Mogok Sayadaw gave many talks on Abhidhamma to the lay community in Amarapura and Mogok. These were before 1940 that no recorded tapes and note left behind by anyone. After his realization of Dhamma, he never taught Abhidhamma again. Dhamma talks by Mogok Sayadaw. 27th to the 28th of May 1962. More fearful than 5 heavy kammas. The Buddha, with his knowledge observing the world, noted that there is no other Dhamma having a greater fault than the wrong view of taking the 5 khandhas as me. It's more fearful than the 5 heavy kammas. Here, the wrong view referred to is Niyata Micca Ditti, a fixed wrong view which denies the law of kamma. Sakkaya Ditti is like a seed, and the other wrong views are the outgrowths of it. This Buddha's saying comes from the Anguttara Nikaya. Why is that? Someone who committed the 5 heavy kammas, any one of them, even though falling into hells, if the world were to face destruction tomorrow, he would be freed from hell tomorrow. But for someone who has a fixed wrong view, they must move to other worlds of hell to continue with the overgrowth of Sakkaya Ditti, which becomes a fixed wrong view. U Maya was also advised to address important tasks sooner rather than later. U Maya was one of the well-known businessmen in Burma. Sayadaw warned him many times to practice, but he postponed it. He was preparing to come and practice when he passed away unexpectedly. Time and tide wait for no man, including death. Closing parenthesis. I had also warned him in Amarapura. This talk was in Mogok. U Maya was still alive. Even when Sayadaw was in Rangoon, he met him again and warned him. After Sayadaw returned to Amarapura for his last vasa, U Maya prepared for the journey and passed away suddenly. U Ong San Wai has no need to fear, i.e., for death and painful births. He has already discerned anicca very well. U Ong San Wai was a retired politician in the same year General Ne Win took power and came under Sayadaw's instruction for the practice. N. Gurnkarji did the same. Because of the military coup, he could not do any business in Burma and returned to India, spreading the Dhamma worldwide. Unfortunate things become fortunate for some people. Here both men had the chance to come closer to Dhamma, which leads everyone in the right direction. See the causes for U Gurnkarji on how a Hindu becomes a Buddhist. The beginning of wrong view, here refers to Niyata Micca Ditti, starts from Sakkaya Ditti. In the Dharmahadaya Vibhanga, the Buddha taught that someone with merits who takes rebirth in heavenly realms, but if he has a wrong view, will fall down again. Where does Sakkaya Ditti come from? Sayadaw used the story of Anathapindika to explain about wrong view. Mind and form dharmas arise from conditioning. If the conditions perish, mind and form also perish. Anathapindika explained the causes of wrong views to outsiders. Not knowing about the Sankhata Dhamma, cause and effect phenomena, and with unwise attention, ioniso, one develops wrong views. And also, listening to the wrong teachings, e.g., the creation and the creator, leads to wrong view. Only with the discerning of anicca does one achieve right attention, yoniso. There are 4 wrong attentions: wrong attention to the phenomena of anicca, dukkha, anatta, and asubha as nikka, sukha, atta, and subha. An example regarding wrong listening to teachings is, if you do it, you'll receive it. You enjoy the results of the merit many times in the human world and heavens. This ends at the knowledge of the law of kamma, kammasakata nana. This is a kind of ending based on what others say. This is the wrong way of listening to teachings of the Buddha. In the sutta, the cause for wrong views arising is listening to wrong teachings, such as other faiths. The Buddha's use of similes, analogies, metaphors is for understanding and not taking them as literal, e.g., wholesome actions follow someone as a shadow. Sayadaw retold the Dhamma points in the first talk, after the preceding mind ceases and the following mind arises. This explains the death and birth process from this life to the next. The same kind of mind arises, the same kind but different mind, because Qti Chitta and Jati Vijnana are different minds, but from the same kind of mind, online. Sayadaw gave the example of lighting the second candle from the first candle light to dispel the 2 wrong views of permanence and annihilation. If the first candle light moves to the second candle, then the first candle light must cease. This demonstrates sasata ditthi falling away. The same kind of light appears at the second candle. This demonstrates akeda ditthi falling away. Dana with no enrichment of insight, or support with insight knowledge, becomes inferior dana. From Anguttara Nikaya, a vipassana yogi with the discernment of anicca and no desire for anicca, with this kind of making dana, will not acquire another khandha again. The Buddha taught various types of dana, and the last one was dana supporting with insight. Starting with insight and following with dana is not wrong, or the best way which Mogok Sayadaw teaches people all the time. At last, the Buddha encouraged the monks to teach the lay community about dispelling wrong views for them with reference to Anathapindika. See the original sutta. Dharma Talks by Mogok Sayadaw. 30th to the 31st of May 1962. Knowing Dharma is knowing the Buddha. It's true that people are not listening to the Dharma of liberation from death. So they are doing things which lead towards the cemeteries. In the whole of samsara, it'll be like this. The Buddha exhorts us to always stay with a Dharma of freedom from death. This is staying with one of the Satipatthana Dharma. Sayadaw talked about how to train the 6 animals from the discourse of the simile of the 6 animals. In the beginning of the sutta, the Buddha gave an example of a worldling. A man whose whole body was covered with sores. In this situation, he would enter a thorny wood. All these sores exist at the 6 senses of the door. He was not only having the sores, but was also a double-blind person, i.e., a worldling. He liked the thorny wood. The 6 sense objects were thorns. You all like being free from dangers but go toward the places with dangers. The Buddha wants you all to cure the sores and does not want you to enter the thorny wood. He sees the dangers and has great compassion, Mahakaruna. He became Buddha with Satipatthana, and thereafter continued dwelling with Sati. Therefore, to be freed from aging, sickness, and death we have to stay with one of the Satipatthana. Sayadaw mentioned the 6 senses of the door with its counterparts, the 6 animals. The masters are six and the slave is one because he has to follow the desires of the six senses of the door. You lack the Satipatthana post and in every life follow the pulling of the six animals that die badly with dukkha. There was never stable dying, i.e., taking rebirths randomly, mostly in woeful existences. Therefore, the Satipatthana post, sati post, is so important to us. For the safety of the sense faculties, controlling the six animals, mindfulness is very important. Only by striking a Satipatthana peg, post, will you be freed from dukkha. In teaching Dhamma, the Buddha uses two kinds of speech. It's right and true, beneficial, but people don't like it. People are unaware of the Dhamma they dislike. Nevertheless, the Buddha has to teach it because it's beneficial for the person involved. He'll wait for the right chance and time to teach. The second kind is right and true, beneficial, and people like it. He also looks for the suitable time to teach the person involved. In the 45 years of his life, as Buddha, he only spoke these two kinds of speech. If it's needed urgently, he'll go quickly to teach them, when a person is near death. If there is enough time for someone, he'll wait for him. We can see all these situations in the suttas. In both kinds of speech, there is compassion. Some people like the Buddha's words. However, if his knowledge is not mature enough, he has to wait for it. When the time is ripe, he goes there to give the teaching. If a Dhamma leads to truth, Sakka Dhamma, which leads to liberation, and vice versa. As an example, consider the teaching Sariputta gave his friend Brahman Dhananjani. The teaching must go straight into the heart, leading to the knowledge of the Khandha. The listener, while listening, also has to observe the Khandha. Then, it will lead to the truth, Sakka. MN 97 Dhananyanisatam. The example of the first kind of speech is the simile of the six animals, which people don't like because worldlings are immersed in defilements. It opposes the way most people are accustomed. Always being pulled by the six animals prevents attaining the stable, unmovable Nibbāna. Knowing the Dhamma is knowing the Buddha. Then you know the compassion of the Buddha. The six senses of the door are an extension of Papanka Dhamma. The path factors of Satipatthana Dhamma kill Papanka Dhamma, Nipapanka, it kills the six animals. Dhamma Talks by Mogok Sayadaw. 5th to the 6th of June 1962. Happy with the oppressive Khandha. Birth, aging, and death are the truths of dukkha. Birth is coming, aging is living, and death is dying. All these are bad indeed. Only these things exist in the internal nature of the Khandha body. This represents the sub-moments of each mind moment, arising, presence, and dissolution. We own the three factors of dukkha. If you don't know these three factors, whatever existence you're arriving at starts from Taṇhā. Wherever you're happy is bhava Taṇhā, craving for existence. It's controlled by not knowing avidya. So, you make companionship with these three factors of dukkha. If you're happy with the oppression, it means only craziness, pilanatta. This is becoming crazy with kilesas. The duty of birth, jati, throws you into the prison, patisandhi. Aging, jara, is beating and torturing you until you're flat out, can't get up. After that, it will send you to the hand of death, marana. I am teaching you to change the way before you're arriving at death from aging. If you've arrived there, I can't do anything for it. So, you have to search for the parting way. It's not good from the beginning, jati, in the middle, jara, or in the end, marana, that asks you to find the parting way. You have to follow the noble path. Tomorrow, I'll continue to talk about it. Postponing the Dharma practice for tomorrow or the day after tomorrow means Sasata Ditthi is prompting you to do it. From the beginning to half an hour, Sayadaw was talking about Jati, Jara, and Marana and then continued to talk about the Devadaha Sutta. It's very important to understand the doctrine of the Buddha. Most Buddhists don't understand it, even though they worship him. This is only paying respect but not following his Dharma instruction, important to all Buddhist traditions. The Buddha's doctrine is the abandonment of Taṇhā, which clings to the 5 khandhas. Therefore, its doctrine advocates no affection for the khandha. So, don't go in front of the Buddha asking for things he disapproves of, i.e., to get jati, e.g., Mahayanists. With an affection for the khandha, when it changes, sorrow, lamentation, etc., follow behind it. Having no affection for the khandha is moving towards death with a smile.